I've been hearing that every day of my life. Okay, I know the Garden's the Garden. But right now, they need to do exactly what Brooklyn did. It's a copycat league. And 1 or 2 years from now, we could be sitting here holding the Knicks in a much higher regard.
It's possible. I would be surprised. I am pretty low on the Knicks this year. I don't see what's going on there. I think if Julius Randle is your offensive hub, that's fine. But I think that's going to speak volumes about what their offensive ceiling is. I think this will be a bottom five defense and probably a bottom 10 offense. And that to me adds up to one of the worst teams in the league. I think Charlotte will be worse. I think their floor is probably second worst team in the league. But at any rate, let's go to a team who last year.
Over unders,
Oh,
Ben.
every time I forget them. All right.
Over unders,
Well,
Ben.
this one's easy for me. The Knicks, the over under here is 27.5. I am going way under. How about you, Jason?
Shocker, but I'm taking the over. Just because, I mean, it's the East. There are a couple teams I think they'll beat up on. It's a long year with the schedule and everything like that. So I'm going to take the over ever so slightly. Knicks fans, you can get off my back now. Go get cool, okay?
Yeah, you can jump on my back, I guess, because I'm so low on them. But a team that definitely met their ceiling last year, Jason, was the Toronto Raptors, who ended up winning the title. Unfortunately, it was a bittersweet ending as shortly thereafter they lost Kawhi Leonard. Now they come into this season, Jason, as defending champions without their best player. And there is news just after they've given Kyle Lowry an extension that they may be trading him as well. So, Jason, what is your take on the defending champion Toronto Raptors?
I mean, when was there ever a scenario where the team wins the championship and they lose their star player that offseason? Can you really think? I mean, maybe to retirement, David Robinson did it,
Jordan.
Alonzo Mourning did it, Jordan did it.
Yeah.
But has there ever been a scenario like this where the best player on the championship team leaves? I mean, it's crazy where the NBA is in 2019, where it's so player influenced and guys dictate their own futures instead of the front office doing their jobs. And Kawhi's gone. Okay. Danny Green's gone. This is already a new
Yeah.
era for the defending champs. Now they're going to go in with that mantle, with that respect, but they have mountains upon mountains to climb if they want to get even close to where they ended up last season. Because you have Pascal Siakam now, who you kind of introduced me to, Ben, because you talked about him way before a lot of people did, before he was this relevant. You're looking at a former diamond in the rough to now being the focal point of this offense with older veterans on expiring deals like a Lowry, like a Serge Ibaka. Thanks for correcting the spelling in the show notes. By the way, his name is not Serby, and Marc Gasol, who is probably trade bait if the Raptors struggle. So I know you're a big X's and O's guys, Ben. So what do you think of Siakam now being the focal point of this Toronto offense?
I mean, I'm a little worried about this team too, Jason. This was a team who I was much higher on a few weeks ago. And the more I take a look at this team, the more worried I am because I think this is a team that if they were to trade Kyle Lowry, which there are some serious rumors that they will, I don't know if this team will be a top 20 offense. I think when you look at this team, they relied so heavily on Kawhi Leonard. And now with these rumors coming out that that Lowry extension may have been to kind of prep him for a trade, you just start to wonder where the offense is going to come from on this team. And there are some holes on this roster, Jason. I mean, if you look at the two, they really don't have a two. The Kawhi decision has really hurt them because they weren't able to really fill their gaps. They have a lot of reclamation projects as their bench. This is a team, when you look at the career of Masai Ujiri, it just feels ripe for a blow up. It really feels like he might just tear this down to the screws, get rid of Lowry, get rid of Gasol, and maybe even trade Ibaka because there are going to be a lot of teams contending, Jason. And I think this is a kind of a bold prediction, I guess, but I think a lot of teams are going to end up being buyers at the end of this season. I think a lot of teams are going to be looking to get one more piece to kind of give themselves a chance to compete. And I think that Masai Ujiri is going to be more than happy to deal all these guys. They have expiring deals for Gasol and Ibaka, and now they just extended Lowry, which I think actually increases his value a little bit, given that next year's free agency is weak, and then also that the year after is so good. a team now knows they get him for 2 years. They extend their championship window. That's probably as long as you'd want him given his age. And then all of a sudden you get into the free agency bonanza.
Yeah, you make all solid points here. What worries me about Toronto is that you lose Kawhi and you really don't add to the roster. You replace Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard with Rondé Hollis Jefferson and Stanley Johnson, okay, two former Arizona Wildcats. That's not going to move the needle. You have Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby, two homegrown guys who will be relied on very heavily by Nick Nurse. I think it's going to be a tough year for them, even though they're going to raise that banner on opening night. After that, it is not going to be pretty, I think, in the six.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit too much too soon for Siakam. I don't think that he can be the focal point of an offense, and that is what they're going to be asking for. And as you said, I just think they lack some depth. I think the people who this is going to work out great for, Jason, and who may be the fantasy beneficiaries of this will be OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet. If VanVleet gets to start, he's going to have a heck of a season. And then Anunoby is the projected starter right now. And likewise with him, if he can play there, I mean, we're going to get to see what he's made of. But let's just kind of look. I mean, where do you see this team ceiling at, Jason?
Hovering above 500, 40 to 42 wins, and making the playoffs. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. Like I said, this is unprecedented territory, Ben, because never have you had the defending NBA champions being thought this lowly of. Okay, and I'm sure they'll be disrespected by it. I'm sure they'll have a chip on their shoulder, but it's not going to be enough. So I think their ceiling is 42 wins tops and a playoff seed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat, and I think that's kind of 40, I'd say 44 if they keep everyone, maybe 46, they could squeeze it out. But I think even that just feels like you're asking for a little much of them. So yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, Jason. I have trouble with that. And then I think as a floor, I mean, man, is there a harder team to pick a floor for, Jason? Because they could end up dealing the most of the team. I mean, they could trade. Ujiri could just decide that's it and trade Gasol, Ibaka, and Lowry. And then, I mean, does this team win 30 games if he does that early in the season, Jason? I mean, that's the crazy thing about this team is Ujiri could kind of turn this team around very quickly. I mean, we talked about some Gasol trades, but I would say Ibaka's in the same boat. He could be very willing to trade those guys, and if he does, he might trade it all right away. I mean, he's shown in the past that he's cold-blooded when it comes to this. He wants to win titles, and he did that last year, and I don't think he's going to have any illusions about what that means for his job security. He knows that he's got a couple years now, and if he wants to make moves, he has to do it now, because in 2 years, the fans are going to say, well, what have you done for me lately? And so I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to go full rebuild pretty early on.
Which is crazy for a team that won the NBA title 4 months ago. I'm going to go ahead and say their floor is 10th seed in the East. The only thing that sticks out from their floor is that you might see Drake change his fandom. You might see him in a Nets jersey. You might see him in a Clippers jersey. He might have get traded by Masai Ujiri. Drake may be donning some different colors coming up very shortly. You just never know.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think I can pretty much guess where we're going to be here. The Raptors over under is preposterously high, 46.5. I mean, I think that is asking a lot, even if they keep everybody. I'm going under. I mean, I'm not going to have any suspense here, Jason.
And what did I put, Ben? Ooh, let's see. Yeah, under.
So with that, we get to the last team in the division, and a team that I think has gotten a lot of love this offseason, and that's the Boston Celtics, who have made a lot of moves, Jason. I have to do a little deep inhale here. So they got rid
I
of
was with you,
Kyrie
buddy.
Irving, Al Horford. They add in Kemba. They add in Cantor. They think that now some of these moves are going to make big differences. They added a bunch of rookies. They add Taco Fall, Carson Edwards, among others. They believe that Gordon Hayward's coming back. I mean, it feels like this is sort of a team that's a lot different. I don't know if many teams kind of reshaped their identity any more than the Celtics did. I mean, it figures to be a very different team, Jason. The question is, Is that good or bad?
Oh, I mean, I think they're somewhere in the middle because they still have that young core with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart. You have Gordon Hayward there still, but they lost a lot. They replaced Kyrie Irving and Al Horford with Kemba Walker and Enes Kanter. And I think the Celtics will be strengthened by the fact that four of those guys were on the FIBA World Cup team. Smart was there, Brown, Tatum, Kemba, who is the United States best player outside of Donovan Mitchell. So I think that a lot of these guys are coming in midseason form already. But the Celtics lost their way. Whether it was Irving's fault, whether it
Yeah.
was Hayward's injury, it's now up to Brad Stevens to get the Celtics to play like a team again. And I think Gordon Hayward has to step up, be as close to he was pre-injury, and really be the leader of this team along with Kemba. And then it's a pretty tall order.
It really is. I mean, this is a team that you just kind of look at, and it's a really tough team to figure out, Jason, because you look at Jason Tatum, who really regressed in his second year, and I have some thoughts on Tatum that I'll get to in a minute, but then you look beyond him, you have Hayward, who was a shell of himself, Jaylen Brown, who really regressed, and then they get Kemba Walker, who really had one of the best, if not the best seasons of his career, gets named to the All-Star team, gets some All-NBA love, ends up with a big new deal in Boston. People are loving him in Boston already, but he's a 29-year-old point guard who is on the smaller side and just played in Charlotte where they basically let him do whatever he wanted, had one of the highest usage rates in the league, Jason. I mean, I think one of the ironies with this team that's very strange is that he's taking over for Kyrie Irving, who was kind of chastised for being too ball dominant. And he just got done with a season where he really had the ball almost all the time whenever he was on the floor. I mean, what do you make of the Kemba move, and do you think Kemba can make moves for this team?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that the Celtics getting Kemba, which allegedly was a handshake agreement before free agency even started because they knew that Kyrie Irving was gone, I think had the Celtics not gotten Kemba, I think they would have been in danger of missing the playoffs, even as good as Brown and Tatum can be. And I think Brown can actually be an all-star this upcoming season. But yeah, I mean, Kemba's got the keys to the kingdom now. I think he's a little more coach friendly than Kyrie Irving is at this moment. I think that will change. But Kemba's never really stirred the pot. He was loyal to the Hornets for the longest time, and they repaid him by completely sucking. So I think going to a team with that championship aura, I guess is a good word to use, wanting to bring that 18th banner to the Garden up in Boston. I think that he's a guy that's up for that challenge. And the Celtics core is nothing to sneeze at because, in their primes, Hayward and Kemba have been top 20 players in the league. So if they can put that together and mesh well and these young guys continue to improve, then the Celtics could be a pretty good team. So I think Kemba is absolutely a good fit there, and he's up for the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes right down to it, there's two players on this team who are going to determine how well they do this year. And Jason, those are their two nominal small forwards, which are Gordon Hayward and Jason Tatum. If those guys take major steps forward, this is a team that could win in the high 40s. I wouldn't be shocked if they won 50 games if those two really perform. If they do what they did last year, this team could struggle to make the playoffs. I mean, that is how big of a gap those two make for this team. And I really don't think that that's going to happen, the latter. But I think it speaks to just how dependent they're going to be. They just went from a team who many people thought would make the finals a year ago to now a team that is really going to need those young guys to play the way that they expected them to. Because here's a dirty little secret about this team, Jason. They don't have much of a bench. Their bench is all young guys who are completely unproven. I mean, Carson Edwards is potentially the backup point guard for this team. And as much as I like Marcus Smart, Kemba Walker, Tatum, Hayward, and Cantor or Tice, whatever the starting lineup ends up being, I mean, that's asking a lot. I mean, Jaylen Brown is great, but I mean, once you get down to those 7/8 guys and down the roster, I mean, there's just not a lot there. So they're really going to need those guys to step up this year, Jason. So I mean, with that in mind, where do you see this team ceiling?
So I do think that they do have a couple of young guys that will boost their ceiling. Taco Fall being one of them. I think has a chance to be a guy that sticks around long term. And then